I have played around with my setup again and I think this might work, so we'll see how it goes. Today I'm going to do the Be a Good Human tag. This was created by Jen Campbell. I will link her video in the description. Do go and look at it because she has a story behind why she made this tag. I think it's a fantastic idea to share books that give us different perspectives, because as far as I'm concerned, that's what reading's all about. So here are some of my top suggestions. Okay, so I've put these into a few different categories, the first one being mental health. So I'd recommend Owls Do Cry by Janet Frame. I know I've mentioned this a few times in videos, but I think it gives a lot of different perspectives in one novel, and it does a lot, so that's why it's such a classic. Janet Frame's own life story is very interesting. She suffered from mental health herself, ended up in an asylum, and this novel really explores some of those ideas. The second one is Notes from an Exhibition by Patrick Gail. This is about a bipolar woman who is also an artist. This novel is written from multiple perspectives, and it's how this artist's family reacts to her and how they deal with her death, because she dies at the beginning of the novel. So we see how her mental illness affected those around her. Third one is A Little Life by Hanya Yanagihara, and this book deals with abuse. It deals with every single kind of abuse that I can personally think of. It's an epic story and it covers the lives of 4 characters, and it follows them for most of their lives. It centers particularly around one character who deals with lots of mental health problems. Trigger warnings galore, but it is well worth reading if you think that you can deal with the subject matter. The second category is age, and I have 2 books for this. One is Elizabeth is Missing. This is about an elderly woman who has Alzheimer's. It's written from her perspective, it's first person narration, and we get to see how people around her get really frustrated with her, and she often can't understand why. She can't remember what she's done 5 minutes ago, maybe not even 30 seconds ago, but she has these amazing memories from her childhood, and that really plays into the novel as the second narrative, but then the two come together. It's very cleverly done, and if you liked the unreliable narrator in The Girl on the Train, then I think you will like this, because this does a better job. The second one is Stone Mattress by Margaret Atwood. This is her most recent published book, and it's a collection of short stories that came out at the end of last year. As with any short story collection, it's a bit varied, but they all focus around this theme of age. My particular favourite in this collection is about this woman who decides to commit the perfect murder, and we get to find out why she needs to commit the perfect murder, and they're on a cruise ship in the Arctic, and it's very exciting. Next category is all about books that have LGBT themes. When I brainstormed, this ended up being quite a long list, so I have chosen my particular favourites, or ones that aren't necessarily so well known on BookTube. So I'll start with A Place Called Winter by Patrick Gail. This is a book that I recently read and absolutely loved. It's about the persecution of gay men. It's around the turn of the century, so following the Oscar Wilde trials. This book is about a man whose life pretty much gets torn apart. He has to go out to rural Canada and start a new life for himself there. I don't want to say too much more than that, but I really loved this book. I gave it 5 stars straight after I'd finished it, and everyone else I know who's read it has really loved it. The second book is The Grace Keepers by Kirsty Logan. This is a book that's a bit more subtle about its LGBT content. It does a lot of interesting things with gender, which, as you know, I always love. It's very quiet and beautiful. I don't want to go too much into the actual LGBT themes of it, but I think people need to know that they are there, because I haven't really heard people talking about it being a queer book. The plot of this novel is very interesting, intricate and exciting, but the love story element of it I found very gentle and unexpected, and you should just read it because it's gorgeous and marvellous. The next novel is called My Fellow Skin by Erwin Mortier, or Mortier. I did try to find out how it was pronounced, but couldn't find anything on it. This is another gay love story. It's also a coming of age story. It maybe isn't quite as optimistic as I hoped that it would be, and certainly some of the other ones on this list are more optimistic. It starts with the character as a child, and then we have him at school, and then after school when he goes on to university. It's published by Pushkin Press, who focus on international and translated fiction. The next one in this category is In One Person by John Irving. This has a bisexual protagonist, and it also deals with a lot of transgender issues. It's very beautiful, plays around with gender roles, and really explores different types of gender and what it means to be one gender or another gender. And this one was another 5-star read for me. The final one in this category is The Line of Beauty by Alan Hollinghurst. This one I actually studied at university and I really loved it. It's basically Brideshead Revisited, but set in the 1980s. I've heard that Alan Hollinghurst doesn't like the comparison with Evelyn Waugh, but I think it's kind of obvious. As it's set in the 80s, it deals with the outbreak of AIDS. It's quite a different sort of perspective, and it's not one that I've heard much about on YouTube. In fact, I don't think I've ever heard anyone on YouTube talk about it. That's something that we should remedy. The next category is women, and I've done other videos where I've talked extensively about feminist non-fiction. I think I might have to do another one of those videos at some point. Anyway, my recommendations are Ruth Ozeki's A Tale for the Time Being and My Year of Meats. Ozeki writes brilliant female characters. They're diverse and intricate and have really interesting individual voices. The other book I'll mention in this category is Zami, A New Spelling of My Name by Audre Lorde. Again, I've mentioned this book quite a bit, but it's really, really fantastic. It's a memoir dealing with race and sexuality, Audre Lorde being lesbian and black, and on top of dealing with all these issues, it's really beautifully written. A couple more categories. One is race. The first one is Toni Morrison's newest novel, God Help the Child. This is the Toni Morrison book that I've enjoyed the most. I think it's quite different from her other ones. I find her style quite challenging at times, but this one seemed easier to read. It deals with race and class and age and love, and it's beautiful. Then we have Kindred by Octavia E. Butler. This is science fiction, a bit like The Time Traveler's Wife. The protagonist, who is a black woman, gets sent back in time and ends up in slavery times in the south of the US. It's a really heart-pounding read because the stakes are obviously very high for her. Real page turner, but it has a lot of heart. Next is Brown Girl Dreaming by Jacqueline Woodson, another book that's very beautifully written. It is written for children, but it's something that adults can get a lot out of as well. It's a memoir about the author as she grows up. And then we have The Interpreter of Maladies, which is a short story collection by Jhumpa Lahiri. This collection particularly looks at immigration. You get a real range of perspectives. The final category is war, and this is not a subject that I read about much at all. These two books look at war from a different perspective, and it's more to do with the aftermath and the prejudices that we hold. The first is Snow Falling on Cedars by David Gutterson. This is set on an island in America after the war, so it's in the 1950s, and it's following this murder trial. The accused in this murder trial is a Japanese man. Again, it's been a while since I've read this, but those are the themes that really stuck with me. The final book is The Reader by Bernhard Schlink. This book I did read recently, and it's all about the aftermath of the war and about the next generation in Germany and how they deal with the crimes of their mothers and fathers. It asks a lot of big philosophical questions, and they're questions that you as a reader are asked to consider as well. It's a short novel, but a really important one. So there we have it. Those are some of the books that I feel made me a better person, made me a more sympathetic person. Of course, there are many more that I could have included in this list, but I did want to talk around them a little bit. So I hope this has been helpful, that you've got some new books to add to your TBR. Let me know in the comments if there are any books that you think made you a better person. I would be really interested to know. Thank you very much for watching, and I will hopefully see you next time. Bye!